Hi guys, welcome to a video. Today's topic is, should non-lesbian creators be creating lesbian content? And by non-lesbian, I obviously mean people who are A, not women, and B, not queer or lesbian women. As a disclaimer, I obviously believe people should have the freedom to create whatever they want. I'm not saying things should be banned and things shouldn't be allowed. This video is just my own feelings and my own opinion about certain people making certain kinds of content and why I find it somewhat problematic. Also, this video is about me discussing content that is centered around Sapphic identity and Sapphic relationships and Sapphic imaging, which is used as packaging or promotion. So this video isn't about me discussing content where somebody's created a work of fiction, be it film or book, and it's about a group of people who go on a space mission and one or two of them are lesbians. That's absolutely not the same as a fictional work centered solely on one or two Sapphic characters. Okay, so to give it to you hard and fast, lesbians are essentially a marginalized community, and our entire history is saturated by people speaking for us and over us, writing our narratives, hypersexualizing us, using our identity for capital gain, and packaging our identity for public consumption. And by other people speaking over us and for us, I do indeed mean heterosexual men. And this has been done through a number of mediums throughout history, whether it be the law, religious institutions, books, comics, movies, pornography, and so on. Now, these particular narratives coming from absolutely everybody else but us has caused catastrophic damage among the community, resulting in things like conversion therapy, shock treatment, street harassment, harassment from the police, job loss, violence, and dehumanization, and just all around prejudice. And so you might think, well, you know, all of that's in the past. Can't we just kind of sweep it under the carpet and, you know, we're all equal now, so, you know, let's just forget about it and enjoy the work? Well, unfortunately, a lot of what happened in history is still with us today. We're still feeling a lot of repercussions from the damage that was caused in the current day. It's only around the 1970s that lesbians were really able to fully express themselves through media with the support of publishing companies and without censorship. Of course, there were bits and pieces of books and films before the 1970s which contained lesbian themes, lesbianism, even had female directors, female authors. However, they were subject to censorship and they really had to run parallel with the narrative that lesbianism was immoral and unhealthy. If they didn't run parallel with those ideas, they were subject to be banned. So after many years of fighting to have a voice and to have a place on shelf spaces in bookshops and films accessible to the public, we are finally today seeing more diversity and a bit of a boom, to be honest, in lesbian literature. And from this boom in kind of lesbian film and lesbian literature comes capital. And women making capital, making money, is strongly linked to women having autonomy and freedom, specifically queer and lesbian women. And even in today's world, this is still fragile. It's not something all women have access to. So when I walk into a bookshop, be it a gay bookstore or just your average bookstore with an LGBT section or a lesbian section, and be it brick and mortar or be it online, when I see lesbian books by Neil Gaiman and Max Gladstone sitting on the shelves and essentially waiting to make capital off of lesbian identity, presumably from a Sapphic audience. Of course, anyone can buy these books, but they're primarily aimed at a Sapphic audience. It makes me incredibly uncomfortable because I feel like that shelf space should go to actual queer and lesbian women instead of an ugly echo of narrative snatching and commodifying lesbianism from the past. This goes for all minority literature and art, by the way. I don't want to get off topic and race and sexuality are two very separate subjects, but they're both rooted in a history of oppression and silence. With that in mind, I am free to write a book about Black narrative and Black experience and Black love. I'm very much free to write that kind of literature, but I wouldn't do that because I would essentially be speaking over a minority, speaking for a minority, and making capital from that identity, which isn't mine to really make capital from. And I would also be taking up shelf space, which could go to Black authors. And it's not really about how good the work is. That's not really the point. I know some people do think it's the point, but it's actually not. The whole point of art is expression of the self. I mean, maybe that's subjective, but to me, art is very much an expression of the self. And where minorities are concerned, that directly ties into our own realities. So moving on to film. Film is much more complicated because a film usually involves a team of people, whether it be behind the camera or in front of the camera, and it can be a collaborative effort. Yes, when publishing a book, you may have a team of people who are marketing and editing and so on, but essentially the author is the sole voice of the book. But going back to film, you may have a male director, but perhaps the scriptwriter is a lesbian, or it's based on a novel written by a lesbian, perhaps the actors are queer or lesbian, and so on. So really where film is concerned, I look at it like this, what's the motivation of this film being made? Who does this film benefit? Is the representation healthy? I think in films like The Handmaiden and The Favourite, and of course these films are fantastic films, they're very well made, however they both very much carry a male stamp on both of them. That doesn't void the films. In their own way, they're still very much a form of representation, but it's still an uncomfortable reminder that really only queer and lesbian women can tell queer and lesbian stories authentically. And this isn't because they're better filmmakers or anything like that, but simply because they can express themselves authentically. And yes, film is very subjective, but comparing a lot of lesbian film to Portrait of a Lady on Fire, I personally noticed quite a stark difference in what I was watching. And watching that film was kind of like wading through a desert and then finding a tall, cold glass of water. As I said at the beginning of this video, people are completely free to make what they want, but it's equally important that people are free to deconstruct what they're consuming and also the motivation of these products being made and sold. So to conclude this video, representation in print media and in moving image is incredibly important to the whole LGBT community because it shapes public perception. It shapes our own perception, and it's absolutely all connected. And I think it's really important that we support and build our own communities up and not invest our time and money in art that is essentially reductive or damaging. Okay guys, thanks for listening. I know that was a bit of a complex one and I'm sure people will have varying opinions on what I've said. If you do want further information about the history of lesbian literature, lesbian film and queer and lesbian history in general, there is an educational playlist on my channel where you can get more information. Don't forget to subscribe for instant disappointment and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.